been in your life? We certainly like to pick your thoughts on that. We'll be taking a trip down memory lane. From the introduction of radio in the 1930s to what radio was like during the independence era. I have some interesting facts and some interesting stats to share with you all. But have a think about that whilst we go on this very quick break. The year is 2024. How long have you been listening to the radio for? I know some of my veterans will be calling me up and telling me how impactful radio has been for them, for the discussions, for the discourse, for the unity, for community. We're going on this very quick break. When we come back, there's a lot right here on 3FM Sunrise, on 3FM 92.7.
Adama, Metamosua, my sorry. Canino, Obo Moasia. I do for Nobium Union San last night. I don't know what we did. Adama, what you have from what we say. Yet you drew back up a ship we be a high technology. I could for freezer. When Kwan, and once open your 15 letters. No fugum, what ya no fugum. What the bus here, for you be any of us you, equity self, over Timono. Then we sure say, woman shown task here. Nema sena for na no freezer umpa we na pade freezer
dasia e be so do so aman amoni age
omutina me wasika omutina me di me nyina du ba bi so mdu Adama without Adama no kuya Adama you can't resist
Ubenya Adama West Africa for adwe bi wo be bibia ye ton kraye ho adwu afi kayo na kenkan enchoya ewo adwe ho
3FM Sunrise 3FM Morning Show 3FM 92.7 3FM Your urban lifestyle radio 3FM Sunrise 3FM Morning Show 3FM 92.7
3FM Sunrise.
Celebrating all night long. Celebration, jubilation, come together, all together. Celebration, jubilation, all together, all together, all together, all together. Folks are jumping, screaming, and shouting, party everywhere. All our friends, let's join hands and make the sun shine bright. Why don't you come right in and have a good time too? Everybody's dancing, celebrating all night long. Celebration, jubilation, come together, all together.
Still live here on 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. A very, very happy World Radio Day to all of us. Now let me tell you a little bit about the evolution of radio over the last 100 years in Ghana.
I guess as a lover, I have a ways to go.
3FM Sunrise.
When someone
Well, radio made its debut in Ghana during the colonial era. The Gold Coast Broadcasting Service, later known as Ghana Broadcasting Corporation GBC, was established to broadcast news and entertainment. And that was in the 1930s.
radio,
Now, after gaining independence in 1957, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation expanded its reach and programming, becoming a vital source of information and entertainment for the nation.
they sing it on the radio.
And this would have been between the 1950s and the 1960s.
Gotta find a way to explain.
And then comes the 80s and the introduction of FM radio. Now, the 1980s saw the introduction and growth of FM radio stations in Ghana, providing better sound quality and diverse programming options.
If you close your eyes, the feeling's my
Fast forward to the 1990s and the liberalization of broadcasting. Ghana's broadcasting landscape became more diverse with the liberalization of the airwaves in the 1990s. Private radio stations were allowed,
night together.
leading to increased competition
Sing it on the
and a variety in content. Now, the 2000s saw digital broadcasting becoming the new thing. Ghana transitioned from analog to digital broadcasting, enhancing sound quality and enabling additional channels and services.
That's how I really feel.
Now, between the year 2000 and the 2010s, the emergence and growth of community radio stations played a crucial role in providing localized content and connecting with specific communities.
They sing it on the radio.
Again, we also saw internet and online streaming. The internet's widespread availability facilitated the growth of online streaming, enabling listeners to access Ghanaian radio content globally and contributing to the global diaspora connection. And that's why we have many of you listening to us from across the globe.
When
And you can do so via our social media channels.
it's so
We're streaming right now on Facebook and also on X, so do check us out at 3FM 92.7.
can dance real slow.
Again, around the 2010s, 2010s, thereabout, radio stations in Ghana diversified their programming, catering to various interests, including music, news, talk, and cultural content.
Let's
Now, we can't talk about technology and not talk about mobile technology impact. The rise of mobile technology allowed more people to access radio content on their phones, contributing to increased listenership and increased engagement. Again, many of you listen to us on the go. You're plugged in on X and on Facebook. You can even listen to us on 3news.com. That's how easy it is to connect.
you'll realize
And then we have digital innovation and podcasts.
my words
We're
can't
still seeing continued technological advancements
playing on the radio.
that have likely led to further innovations in digital radio and the adoption of podcasting as a popular form of on-demand content.
Let's spend the night together, baby, don't go. They sing
Now, these milestones collectively showcase the dynamic evolution of radio in Ghana from its early days to present, reflecting changes in technology, regulation,
don't sing.
and the preferences of the Ghanaian audience. So this morning we're asking you to do a little bit of reflection. What role has radio played in your life? How impactful has radio been? Have you found community? I know I certainly have with my 3FM 92.7 family. Every time we open up the phone lines, you all share your thoughts, your comments, even your questions. You do it so passionately, so energetically. And that's how we build family, that's how we build community, and that's how we build nations. Sixters, let me wish you a happy World Radio Day. It's a very, very important day because, well, this is what we do. This is our life force, if you will. This is how we contribute to our communities, how we ultimately contribute to nation building. So I'm asking everybody this morning, how has radio impacted your life? And in fact, Sixers, do you remember when you first fell in love with the radio? What stations you would listen to, the type of content that would draw you in? Looking at that then and looking at things now, what do you think has been the biggest change, the biggest advancement?
You know, growing up, I've always been a media person, more of a news person. I was telling a group of young people I had the opportunity to interact with that my dad, my late father, God bless his soul, was one of the few people in the community with a television set. And
then he was a big man.
He was a teacher. And teachers back then were respected.
That's
it's
right.
not today that a parent can march to a school and go and talk to a teacher anyhow.
Well, the president said, well, if you want to be a teacher, you shouldn't be thinking about the big bucks. Teachers' reward
Sadly.
is in heaven. The teacher
Sadly.
said no, they want the reward
But
on
we
earth.
have to begin to get the rewards
That's right.
here on earth.
Anyway.
Because the position of the teacher is
It's
fast
not-
deteriorating.
it's not great.
It's not good. They are not getting the monetary incentive of it, and the respect and dignity that came with being a teacher is also fast eroding. So what is left? What's the motivation then to become a teacher? Anyway, it's not about
Small
teachers.
digression. We
It's not
move.
about teachers. So, and there was sort of a strict rule in the house. You know, the only programs you would see me watching then would be what do you call it? Then on GTV would be the news, and then this Sunday Talking Point. Those were the only two programs I had. So, and I love to listen to voices. I love to listen to the news. I love to listen to ideas. I love to listen to people talk. So I had an immediate fallback on radio, and I loved music. I've always loved music. I had an immediate fallback on radio. So he had this box and of course all those were things that he used to get as a teacher. That I used to listen to. I seized one of them, claimed it, appropriated it to myself, and I used to listen to radio. Then at that time it was Unique FM. We call it Radio Ghana, right? Relaying through the Heng substation. For those of you who know the Radio Ghana system at the time. And I was so fascinated about all of this. Their voices speaking and the people speaking on the radio, they sound so intellectual. They seem to know everything. You have a presenter who is moderating a particular discourse, and the person is exhibiting such brilliance, you know. And I've always I fell in love with radio because I always wanted to be behind. I always wanted to be, you know, I could hide and speak my mind, sort of. Yeah, so it's fun. If through this small box, somebody can hear me. And so when I went into St. Francis Xavier Minor Seminary, there was an opportunity that the then rector, Reverend Father Cletus Sectop, we sold an idea to him. He agreed to the idea for us to start a newsletter, a student newsletter. And I saw this was my opportunity. Again, it came with a radio set for me. And we used it to do interviews, to listen to the news and pick up ideas and all of that. And all of that kept the flame on, my interests in the media and in radio in particular. So after Xavier, And everybody kept telling me, "Oh, you have a great voice. Oh, you sound great on radio. Oh, why don't you work on a radio station? Why don't you do this?" So right after St. Francis Xavier Minor Seminary, my father held my hand, took me to the community radio station in Wa at the time, handed me over to the manager at the time, Miss Doris, we used to call her, and told the manager, "This is my son. Just make something out of him." I don't know whether my father had a plan for me. I don't know. It's a conversation I never had with him till he passed. I don't know whether he had a plan, whether it was some grand scheme he had, or he just thought that I was going to be idling about, so he wanted me to be doing something. Till date, I don't know. But that was the beginning for me. That experience from being a student journalist, if you like, talking to people within the school community, within the church community, interviewing people and writing stories on them, writing profiles and all of that. I got the opportunity to then get into mainstream radio, and I started with community radio. And the design, architecture and operations of a community radio station, Helen, is very different from commercial radio.
Okay.
Community radio, your focus, your interest, your goal, everything is about the community interest. Community first, community second, community third, community last. So if it's not something that will directly benefit the community, then community radio is not interested. If it's not something that will directly promote the community, then community radio is not interested. And community radio also, by its very design, you are supposed to be everywhere in the community. You are highlighting the voices of the community, the concerns of the community. And so it opened a different world to me altogether. That I thought I knew the community that I lived in, but I really did not. Until I started with the community radio and started engaging with the people. This was in what Radio Progress. I started engaging with the people and started understanding what the real concerns of the people were at the time. And I saw that, well, radio has a significant role to play in our development. So be it girl-child education, female genital mutilation at the time, promoting the culture of the community, arts and tourism of the community, encouraging education and sanitation. And I was particularly focused on WASH, community sanitation, water, and all of those things within. That was my area. And Helen, I read my very first news bulletin on radio in my local language.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you recall what that bulletin was about? Any recollection at all?
I don't remember. I don't remember. This was 2007.
2007. Okay.
Was it 2006? I don't recall.
A while ago.
I don't recall.
Nearly 20 years ago. 17 years ago.
I don't recall. But you see, it also gave me that exposure. Remember, I said that everything was about the community. So you are reading the news in Dagari, and you would pick like what you see on the 3 stations now. You pick a script in English, and then you translate it into the local language. You write it out, actually.
I see.
In the local language, and then you read it. And I had a boss, Ivan Domasa, Mr. Ivan Domasa. I think he's still there. I think he's now head of station Radio Progress. He was so diligent at his job that when the head of station at the time handed me over to him, he said, his father has dedicated him to us. Let's use him. The man asked me, what can you do? Me, any and everything. You know, when you are growing, you have this kind of confidence.
That's right.
Yeah. So he said, okay, let's start with the news. And he knew I could read Dagari. He knew I could write Dagari. So he said, okay, let's try this. Just go and translate this. He gave me a newspaper. Go and rewrite this story in Dagari for me. I wrote it. And then he went through it and said, okay, then we can start from somewhere. And before long, within a matter of a month, I started writing for him to read. But it took me, I think, another month or so for me to start reading. And again, it gave me a certain response from the community. And the lesson that taught me at the time was that, I mean, Helen, the things we do in this small room,
right?
Okay, it has a lot of impact on people. It's far-reaching. In community radio training, they'll tell you that every single word you utter on air can either kill, form, deface, defame. It has consequences.
That's right.
That you have to think twice before you speak on radio. That is why in production, they will tell you that script everything.
That's right.
Stick to the script as a presenter.
Lest your presenter maybe goes rogue. And then the onus then is on the producer to manage it.
Yeah.
Well, it's World Radio Day. We're looking at the evolution of radio in the last 100 years and its impact on our lives, on our communities, and on the nation as a whole. We're expanding this conversation. I'm here with my producer, 162's Don Ulo. But let's also add some more voices. Kweku Krobia Asante is a journalist, media trainer, and researcher with interest in media, good governance, freedom of expression, fact-checking, and access to information laws in Africa. Kweku, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Helen.
Thank you so much this morning. Well, happy World Radio Day to you.
Thank you, and let me return the favor. Happy World Radio to you and Sisters in the studio and everybody who is working behind the background. And I must say, those are also very important people who contribute to the whole process.
Absolutely.
I tune into the conversation.
Yes.
You know, sometimes we don't give them enough credit, but
that is right.
They contribute to the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Sixtus, good morning to you again. And Ayuko, to you. You are the spine. Shall I say the spine, the heart, the soul of the production? Anyway, I'm wrapping you ahead of Valentine's Day tomorrow. In any case, let's talk about radio. And Kweku, I'm coming to you on this one. How has the role of radio in Ghana evolved over the years from where you sit, particularly when we think about content and we think about programming?
Well, thank you very much. My regards to everybody who's listening to you and those watching you on the social media platforms. I think that to a very good extent, when we say media in Ghana, you know, people will often mistake it to say radio because it goes to the heart of the practice of journalism, to media, and to access to information. Our history, Ghana's history with media, you know, has been to a very good extent radio, coming all the way from the 60s, 70s. You know, in fact, even before that, in the 40s,
that's right.
The Second World War.
In fact, my checks go all the way back to maybe even the 1930s during the colonial era when radio made its debut in Ghana.
Exactly. During the Second World War, you know, when the British government wanted to run its engagement, they would say, but some considered it propaganda, so that they brought the Akasanoma, people gathering around big, you know, equipment, listening to what's happening in the war front, and that culture building up through the GBCs, flowing through. Even though we had one platform, radio has been so many things. It is the disseminator of information. Radio is a companion. You know, people working on the fields, the watchmen at night, people working in the office. It is that instrument that keeps them company. It entertains them. Radio is one that tells time. You know, people, you just be working, you are off guard, you hear it's 5 minutes to the top of the hour.
That's right.
And then you know that, this is the reason when we're training people, we tell them to often tell time. Radio, you know, even for our political history and culture, if a coup and many of the unpopular coups that happened, if a coup will be successful, the peak of it is that the team, the junta, will be able to get at GBC, seize the radio and announce themselves. It is that
sign that there has been a regime change because we have heard their voice on radio. There have been accounts of people who were successful throughout the shootings and all that, but failed to grasp the microphone at GBC to announce themselves. And for the public, they were not aware of you and it didn't work. And so radio has been so many things, especially during elections. We can have a conversation around the importance that radio even have for people in their decision-making process.
Absolutely, because of course the year is 2024. It's an election year. It's a very important year. It's also going to be a very busy year on the airwaves. Something that it caught my attention on social media, might have been yesterday or the day before. A few people were discussing the elevation of the conversation on social media, especially as far as political discourse is concerned. So a few people were saying they're enjoying this evolution where it went from trade, it's seemingly gone from trading insults, although we do still see that in the system, to a more elevated conversation where the citizenry appears to be more focused on things like policies or the reasoning behind certain decisions made by officialdom. Is that a trend that you are also seeing, or are we still in that era where the quality isn't, still up to scratch?
Well, from what we see, a lot more Ghanaians are getting very discerning, and some of the conditions or characters people looked out for going to elections, has changed over the years. And thanks to the work that the media, and of course, as we have a conversation around radio, what radio has done to that. Previously, you hear people talk about ethnicity,
That's right.
How handsome the person looks like, how they connect to them. I won't say they are entirely out of the equation, but for some people, maybe they still come up. But today, every election time, we are faced with policies, key focus areas. So right from the 2012 coming, education, for instance, has been, at the top of the banner. What are you offering to us? Someone says progressive free education. Someone says entirely free education. And at some point, even in the previous elections, health came in. The NDC wanted to present some bold decisions on the health front. The NDC says we are rolling out an Agenda 111 and stuff like that. Going into these elections, the major key focus we are seeing is the economy because of
That's
what
right.
we are feeling now. And so the NDC says 24-hour economy, and then the NPP says, look, I'm going to bring a lot of taxes, free taxes and stuff
That's
like
right.
that, and roll things out. We work in the West Africa region, and sometimes you compare what the quality of conversations here in Ghana to other places going to the polls. You ask them, have you seen the manifesto of a supposed political party or candidate? And you don't find the same thing in other countries in West Africa.
So that
I
means that
feel
in Ghana, we're doing better with the conversation. We're getting more into the details, into the crux of the matter. That's interesting.
Oh, yes. Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
I see. Well, that certainly makes me, feel quite proud that our conversation, at least on the airwaves, are being elevated as compared to our neighbors in the region. But in terms of also sticking with, governance issues and discussing of the issues, how would you say radio has contributed in fostering transparency and accountability? Because those are two big things, I think, that have been a running theme for a couple of years: accountability, transparency. The citizens say we don't get accountability, but I believe that radio has made some strides in that. Issues come and you speak to all parties involved. Do you think there's more that can be done in that area, or is it going in the right direction?
Starting from the 95, 96, when we liberalized the airwaves. So prior to that, you had only GBC and their affiliates across the 10 regions of Ghana. But after the liberalization, to a very good extent, when we say the media will come for you, you wait. Even when the government makes a decision overnight, they dread the morning because
That's
in the
right.
morning, the airwaves will be hot.
They know Johnny's teeth will be sharpened. The biting will be biting.
Exactly. And that conversation is based on radio. The calls that will come through, people coming to share their opinions. As much as the other platforms provide some form of people reaching out, to a very good extent, those platforms are quite literate. So, it reaches just a certain group of people, the online conversations, the written newspapers or print. But radio is that platform where the market women can join in, they can send in their voice messages, they can call in and share their thoughts. A lot of the exposés that journalists have done, even if it doesn't happen on the radio platform, the proper discussion, the analysis on what it means, what people should look out for, the impact it will have on the economy or all those decisions are conversations that radio carries on. And so for the point of accountability, politicians and public office holders are often inundated with calls. Come and speak to this honorable. Why did you do this? Why have you done this? I mean, yesterday conversations even around press freedom and National Media Commission, DJ. Look, your colleagues are out there questioning, raising very critical points.
That's right.
On radio. And then the point of transparency, really, because they work together, people are often called on to respond to. In fact, conversations, when politicians are saying we are granting interviews to a good point is either they are doing it on radio or on TV. And because radio reaches out to more people, you see that a lot more people are informed from that point of view.
Now we talk about what is going right, but have you observed any challenges or obstacles that radio journalists face when attempting to hold officialdom accountable? What more can be done to address some of these issues?
Well, a lot of them. You see, the major challenge that we are facing today, number one, is because when the politicians and the business people realize that radio is so effective and impactful to the public discourse and to holding them to account and all that, they decided to own the space. So as we speak, we have what we call political capture of the media space, and particularly the radio stations. I am in Bonga right now doing some training programs. You speak to anybody, the top radio stations are owned by the politicians. The last time we did a study in 2018, about a third of our political platform, especially radio stations, were owned by politicians. The danger is that
that's a significant number, Kweku, about a third.
Yes, the last time we did this in 2018, about a third.
So that means that number could actually be higher now in 2024?
Way higher, I guess. Way higher, I guess, because between that time and now, a lot of radio stations have popped up, we know, that are aligned to politicians or politically exposed.
And I suppose we could probably see more of that. It is an election year after all.
Exactly. And of course, from our monitoring, we are seeing some radio stations popping up here and there, some conversations, and you pry further and you know who is behind these radio stations or who is behind that. So at that front, the quality of the conversation is being doubted, you see. Then there's so much partisanship also popping up in that space. Again, as more and more radio stations are coming up that belongs to politicians or politically exposed persons, they are not really interested in doing the proper journalism work that you guys may be doing. The accountability bit of it, holding people to account, asking hard and difficult questions, probing further to find details on a certain subject matter. They are more interested in trumpeting the political ideals, the propaganda of the owners and the political parties that they are aligned to. But also, a more bigger problem is, because of the media technologies that are coming up, it's become necessary that radio journalists build capacity and improve their abilities. We see a lot of limitations when it comes to professional standards, even by radio journalists. The tradition over the time, especially for the local language broadcasting platform, is that they take people with little or no training or background training with media or journalism, but just based on fluency or oratory and the person's ability to crack jokes sometimes, quite regrettably. But it has become necessary that even when you bring such persons in, we train them on the job, build their capacities, which is something that we are lacking. And so we see a lot of poor, shoddy, unethical, low standard reporting coming out from radio. Sometimes it is just joke and just tomfoolery on
That's
radio.
right. That's right.
Serious news items that need to be treated with all the severity that it needs. You hear people cracking jokes from it, making light of the subject matter, and unfortunately sometimes make people tune off and begin to give the platform radio, which has served us, quite well over the years, a certain bad name. And
That's
so
right.
those are very key critical challenges that we are observing with the practice of radio in the country.
Well, time check, it is some 20 minutes to the top of the hour, 9 a.m. You're still live here on 3FM Sunrise, on 3FM 92.7. It is World Radio Day, and we're looking back at the evolution of radio over the last 100 years. We're on the phone lines now with Kwekwa Sante, journalist, media trainer, and researcher, talking through some themes as far as radio is concerned and its impact on the nation, especially at a time like this. It's 2024. The general elections are upon us, and every day it gets closer and closer. But Kweku, from your perspective, what strategies or best practices should radio broadcasters adopt to ensure that their content fosters civic engagement and encourages citizens to actively participate, just like the president charged us to do, to be citizens and not spectators? You talk about building capacity. What else should we be thinking about?
On top of my mind, you see, because of how media technologies are fast changing and impacting the whole media landscape, a lot of people now have become journalists, or if you want, community journalists. And so people are blogging, people are doing their own things, influencers here and there.
That's right.
Sharing information. In the process, there's so much proliferation of misinformation and disinformation. But increasingly, as people realize that these social media platforms are not places where you can take accurate information, they are falling back on the traditional media platform and specifically coming to radio, because radio is the most accessible platform for our people. And so it is important that journalists be conscious of the fact that we are the people that they come to for accurate information. When it gets difficult, when people are they are clouded in their mind what is actually the situation, because on social media platforms, different influences, they will come to radio. Why? Because they think that on radio there's some level of quality verification, journalistic approaches to doing the work. And so we need to be very conscious of the fact that even in the proliferation of other media sources, radio must stand to be that platform that people can come to for accurate information, and we must stick to that. Secondly, this is an election year.
That's right.
We must use radio to facilitate the citizens' decision-making process. And that is quite a broader point to make, but we can break it down. Number one, this is the time that people are going to exercise their franchise and choose leaders. We must present radio as a platform that make available the varied options to people. Present your platform to people that who want to present themselves to be leaders. We must be thought leaders and push out the agenda on what citizens must avert their minds to go into the elections, given the pertaining situation we are faced with now, the current economic situations, the financial situations, the health conditions that we are faced with, education challenges. We must make radio be the thought leader, point out these key areas so that the citizens can be informed in that order. Thirdly, we must also guide them on what the electoral process must be. Where do I vote? Is there any registration? What do I need to do to vote and vote well? All those details. And then most importantly, this is also the time where there is a lot of false information moving around.
That's
we
right.
must set our platforms to be fact-checking outlets in this time when there's so much fake information, so much misinformation,
That's
disinformation.
right.
Some of them are deliberate social media manipulation attempts.
And now we even have AI that makes things a lot more tricky. You can manipulate the voice and all of that.
Exactly. At Factor Ghana, we have had to fight with a lot of, there's the recent parliamentary primaries by the NPP, a deep fake AI-generated video emerged, making a lot of allegations here and there. It may be very regrettable if we see radio stations being engaged in some of these platforms. I understand a lot of them are slanted or are aligned to some of the political parties.
That's
but
right.
The ones that are not, we must try and be the platform that will debunk, combat false and misleading information so that people can be rightly informed and make the proper decisions. Democracy thrives on decision making, and decision making thrives on getting accurate and factual and timely information.
Absolutely, Kweku. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for such an insightful conversation. We're grateful.
My pleasure.
Again, that was Kweku Krobia Asante, Program Officer, Media Foundation for West Africa. He's also a journalist, media trainer, and researcher with interest in media, good governance, freedom of expression, fact-checking, and access to information laws in Africa, guiding us through the conversation of the last 100 years of radio. Very exciting indeed. And as I mentioned, we're also checking your temperature. How impactful has radio been to you? Let us know. Join us on the socials at 3FM 92.7. The conversation continues. It is World Radio Day.
When someone wants you, they should just say
3FM Sunrise. 3FM Sunrise.
You'll understand if you'll take my hand, then we can dance real slow to something on the radio. Listen to the radio.
3FM Sunrise.
Radio. Let's spend the night together. Baby, don't go. They sing it on the radio.
And you cannot have World Radio Day without everybody's Uncle Tom.
Fine.
The great Tommy Annan Forcing is on radio. And he's live on air. Good morning, Uncle Tom. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
The great Uncle Tom.
Oh.
Good to hear from you every day.
They make my head swallow.
No, you deserve it. You deserve it. You have served very, very well. So we have to celebrate you every day. And we cannot miss you on this day. Uncle Tom, we are 100 years since radio started. Some of us, Totofifi, we have joined, but you have served. What can you tell us on World Radio Day?
Well, like you said, radio is 100 years old, and radio has done a lot for Ghana and Africa and the world at large. It has impacted a lot of people. We all know that radio is the most powerful medium, apart from the pen, because it travels at the speed of sound, perhaps even light. So it has changed the world, people's perceptions about so many things, health, politics, family, relationship, whatever. It has changed the world a lot, and including my world as well. It has changed me and brought me to this level. So I think radio is something that will never die today or tomorrow, and it'll keep going. But I think 100 years radio has done very, very well.
Uncle Tom, you have served very, very well. You have, different facets of radio. You have trained and sharpened and honed people. You look back, sit down and watch, and sometimes the thoughts get to you. What would you say radio has become these days?
Well, radio has become, should I say, informative, very, very informative, educative, and of course, entertaining the whole world. And I think that is exactly what radio does. Like you rightly said in your intro, that I've trained a lot of people who are on radio today and stuff like that. So I think that radio has changed families, radio has changed businesses, radio has changed the face of politics, radio has changed my life. I've done radio for close to 47 years, and for me, I can still keep going and going and going. So I think radio has impacted a lot. It has brought out things that hitherto people did not know. It has opened the eyes and ears of the Ghanaian as far as the whole world is concerned. Talking about information, entertainment, everything. There's so many things that we did not know, but radio has brought us all the information, all the entertainment, and all the education, and it is still going further and further. So I think radio is a good thing, and we praise those who invented radio. So it's been a good thing for all of us.
In those tumultuous military moments, you had at one point to push the dial up or the fader up for a certain announcement to be made that the country had been taken over. You were there in the heat of the action. How did you feel?
Well, I'll tell you what, Johnny, when you hear those Mowogs coming to GBC, it's very frightening. The Mowogs and the Pins goers, loaded with soldiers and stuff like that. But I remember the late Jerry John Rawlings, when he came to the station one time, everybody had scattered, because of a few gunshots here and there. But I was the first person to see him, and I wanted to dodge because I knew, if he saw me, he probably asked me a few questions. But he spotted me and asked me to come out, which I did, So he said that he wanted to go and make an announcement. I said, sure. So I led him to the studio. The technicians had prepared everything. And, of course, they had a monitor with them to make sure that whatever he was saying on the air also was being monitored by soldiers who brought a transistor at the time.
Right.
So I led him to the studio. He said, what do? I said, just don't worry. I'll handle everything. When you are ready to talk, just let me know. And he gave me a sign. There were soldiers in the studio, with their AK-47s and stuff like that. It was frightening, but then...
Was Tommy Annan-Fossey not scared?
Say again?
Was Tommy Annan-Fossey not scared?
I mean, Johnny, you see machine guns and, the G3s and AKs. It is frightening, even though they meant no harm, but of course it was to protect and make sure that whatever Jerry John Rawlings wanted to say went through. Yes, it was a frightening experience, but once you knew that, they were not going to harm you, this is all they wanted to do. So I said, well, when you're ready, let me know. Gave me the sign. I pushed the fader up for him. And then he made the announcement. And when he finished, we had a hearty chat, conversation, asking about the family. Because he went to Achimota with my late brother and Gerald. So we were just chatting about the family and all. He was very friendly, even though you could see that he was in a state of, action. He wanted to make sure that everything that he was coming to say went through. So even though it was a frightening experience, later on we were able to calm down because we knew that they meant no harm. But yes, it was an experience that I will never forget in my life.
Uncle Tom, you have trained journalists in this country. You have run a media school, and sometimes we look at you in awe of what you have been able to do. If you look back at the people you have trained and those you have sharpened and honed, do you have any regrets that you joined radio?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, radio has redefined my life as far as humility, holding your anger when somebody annoys you and stuff like that. It is if you're on the air and you know what people say and people do or people say behind you and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a normal thing, but it has changed my life, and I must say that I'm a very proud person to be able to have trained a lot of people who are on the air, the Dorinandos, the Komna Dumos, Kwame Sefakaya, and all those people, who went through my hands at the time.
Great Uncle Tom.
But with the media school, yes. I worked with Kwame at GBC. He taught me a few things. So he's also a very grateful person. But then I'm a very proud person knowing that I've been able to change the lives of so many people who are on air today. And if you are able to control yourself and not let the fame get into your head and start misbehaving, being arrogant and stuff like that, then yes. So I'm very proud to have been able to do that.
Uncle Tom, thank you very much. We're grateful.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very much. I wish you all the best. God bless you for all you have done for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to another great legend, the great Te Kiche, one-time presidential correspondent from the great GBC. It's the Te Kiche. Onge Samia. The great Te Kiche.
Yes, sir.
Today is World Radio Day. What do you remember with that golden voice of yours on radio?
Well, I remember my early days in GBC. That was in '82, and how we used to do things. You guys have it easier now, but at that time, you have to walk down to a place we call Channels and record BBC and come and transcribe it for your editor to edit for the news bulletin. I also remember those days there was something we have a radio connection with all the regions, and it's like a Motorola radio connection. I don't know if you still have that piece in your museum in Koforidua.
Yeah, we do.
But then what happens is that when the correspondents have stories, they will call the newsroom. So it goes like Koforidua calling newsroom, Koforidua calling newsroom over. And then the junior most person, that's the reporter, will be asked to go and take down the story. And so you take it down longhand, and then it will go to the editor on duty for editing. Also, those days we were using what we call stencils to type stories on manual typewriters, and then we have a cyclostyling machine that will cyclostyle it, and then we put it all together into a bulletin. But now you guys have
it's
it
easier
cool.
these days.
I mean, you have it cool.
Mr. Tekija, you have also dovetailed into training media people. You now lecture in the university. How is it transferring that knowledge to the next set of journalists to come up? Tell me.
Well, before I retired, I told myself I wasn't going to do anything mainstream. I was going to work in the mainstream media. So thanks to Professor Kwame Kakari, who actually encouraged me, and he actually pushed me to come and lecture. I don't see how I can sit at home and with my 37 years experience in broadcasting, just stay at home without impacting whatever I've learned and known over the years to the younger generation. So that's why I find myself in the lecture room. Transferring from the studio to the lecture hall has been very fulfilling for me.
You were with the great Jerry Rawlings.
Yes.
In the most difficult times of Ghana. We've just been showing some of your photos with him, your passport, and from 1995 and the rest. The young, handsome Tekiche. How was it working with Jerry Rawlings as a radio journalist? You have to put the news on air when the news had to come. Tell me about it.
Well, I would begin from one Monday morning. I came to the office, and the then director of News and Current Affairs, Mr. David Anaglati of blessed memory, just called me and said, "Hey, go to the castle." And I was like, as a reporter,
just like that.
Yes, go to the castle as a reporter this Monday morning. I was taken aback, because around that time it was assistant chief editors and staff who cover the presidency. So, as a reporter, the lowest rank in the newsroom, I was taken aback. But then I had a mentor in Mr. John Yankuma, so he called me aside and said, "In tree, would you call? So that gave me the encouragement,
right,
and to get to the castle. That day too, there was an assignment. So I entered the castle. I entered the room of the late President Rawlings, who was then Chairman Rawlings of the PNDC. And when he entered, he took a look at us, and then he looked at me and then said, "You are new?" I said, "Yes, sir." Then he looked at my shoes and said, "You have big feet. What shoe size you wear?" And I looked at his feet too and said, "We wear the same size." And from that time, he started calling me Big Shoe or Mr. Shoe till he died. And so it was very fulfilling time at the castle. Mind you, I covered the castle from 1986 to 2001, 6th January, when I left the place. But I would say that working at the castle has taken me around the world.
Right.
I always tell my students that I've been as far north as Newfoundland, as far south as New Zealand, as far west as Los Angeles, and as far east as how do you call the place? I've forgotten. Brunei. So it's just about a lot of experiences, and one of them I would never forget was my coverage of the 50th anniversary of the UN. I was there in New York to do that, and spent some 3 more weeks with the president traveling around America and trying to drive up some investment for Ghana.
Mr. Tekiche, so there's family and there's journalism. You have managed your family very well, because I've been close to you. I know your better health and your children, and I've been amazed at how you have put things together. How difficult was it managing family and all these travels and the duty of work, everything together? The young journalists must know. They must be told.
I can tell you that from 1986 to 2001, I had no social life. Because, yes, I wasn't attending weddings, funerals, engagements, and naming ceremonies and stuff. It wasn't stressful. I took it as a job that I was doing, and so I had no social life. I can tell you a story. One day I went to a place called Number One, where Kuala is now. That was set up by Tala Fatala at that time. The first place where we were eating burgers and stuff. It was a Friday, and I had gone out to, as you people say, chill. So I was seated there and then having my beer, and then I saw people in military uniforms moving from table to table. And as they got to my place, they were like, "Charlie, the old man said, make you come home." I said, "Why?" I just closed. He said, "Oh, we are going to war." I said, "Wow. But I don't pack anything, or you know how we talk." And I said,
just like that.
"Oh, yeah, your wife put your bag in the car, so let's go."
Auntie Ruby did that to you?
No, she didn't. I have 2 sets of luggage.
Right.
One full of one was a flight bag.
Right.
With all my things inside for treks. And then I had a suitcase with my foreign traveling apparel and my passport on it.
Right.
So she just, when she heard about the war, she just picked the flight bag and gave it to the soldiers. So from there, straight to the castle, and then we took off.
And you were eating at the time?
I was having a good time. Because I don't get to have good times
on your own because you had avoided all those things because of work.
Exactly.
Have you written a book, Mr. Tekiche?
Well, I'm on it.
Write a book, please. Write a book.
I'm on it. You're not the first person to tell me that, and I'm working towards that.
The history must be penciled and chronicled.
I'm working towards that feverishly, and one of these days you hear that I'm actually launching my book.
Thank you. Mr. Tekiche, he is a veteran journalist, a teacher, a voice coach. He's also a mentor to many young journalists. Thank you for talking to us. We're grateful.
Thank you too. I'm grateful too.
Grateful.
My regards to everyone.
Everybody will hear of you.
All right.
Including
Thank you.
Janet.
Thank you.
Ah, boy. World Radio Day. Oh, my God.
My hand,